woman started staring at me, and I thought she was so weird because she just stared at me and smiled at me.
You are pretty incredible.
Thank you.
You having a good time on all that?
Yes, it's very fun because everybody's very nice.
Child stars who became adult criminals. Picture this. You're 8 years old, standing under blazing studio lights while millions of people watch your every move. The cameras love you, the money flows in, and everyone tells you you're special. But what happens when those lights dim and the world moves on? Today, we're diving deep into the shadows behind Hollywood's brightest young stars. And trust me, what you're about to discover will change how you see child stardom forever. We've all watched them grow up on our screens. These kids seem to have it all: fame, fortune, and a future that looked limitless. But behind the glitter and glamour, many faced a reality that was far darker than any script they'd ever read. Some found their way back to the light. Others weren't so fortunate. And a few? Well, their stories serve as haunting reminders of what can happen when childhood innocence collides with an industry that rarely protects its youngest performers. Let's start with the ones who shocked us most. The mental health crisis. Amanda Bynes was once Nickelodeon's golden girl. Her infectious energy on The Amanda Show made her a household name, and movies like She's the Man proved she could carry major films. But by her mid-20s, something had shifted dramatically. The first warning signs appeared on social media: erratic posts concerning videos and increasingly bizarre behavior that had fans wondering what was happening behind closed doors. In 2012, everything unraveled publicly. DUI arrests, hit-and-run incidents, and a Twitter meltdown that included disturbing accusations against her own father. But here's what made Amanda's story different. She was battling severe mental health issues, including bipolar disorder, while the entire world watched. The same platforms that once celebrated her talent became stages for her most vulnerable moments. The real tragedy? For years, her cries for help were dismissed as publicity stunts or attention-seeking behavior. It took multiple psychiatric holds and years of treatment before people began to understand that this wasn't a choice, it was an illness. Britney Spears faced a similar public breakdown, but her story reveals something even more sinister about how the industry treats its young stars. Starting with the Mickey Mouse Club at just 11, Britney's entire adolescence played out under intense scrutiny. By 2007, the pressure had become unbearable. The infamous head-shaving incident, the umbrella attack on paparazzi, the custody battles, all of it broadcast live for our entertainment. But what we didn't know was that behind the scenes, Britney was trapped in a conservatorship that would control every aspect of her life for over 13 years. Think about that for a moment. A woman who generated hundreds of millions of dollars couldn't even choose what to eat for breakfast without permission. The Free Britney movement finally exposed the truth. Sometimes the people who claim to protect child stars are the ones who exploit them most. These mental health struggles aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a much larger problem. But when you add substance abuse into the mix, the results can be devastating. Let me show you what I mean. The addiction trap. Macaulay Culkin was the most famous child actor of the 1990s. Home Alone made him a global superstar at just 10 years old. But fame came with a price that no child should have to pay. As Macaulay grew older, the roles dried up, but the pressures remained. He began experimenting with drugs as a teenager, and by his 20s, he was battling a serious heroin addiction. The kid who once charmed audiences worldwide was now making headlines for all the wrong reasons. What's particularly heartbreaking about Macaulay's story is how it illustrates the isolation that comes with child fame. When you grow up in the spotlight, forming genuine relationships becomes nearly impossible. Everyone wants something from you, and trust becomes a luxury you can't afford. The good news? Macaulay managed to get clean and rebuild his life on his own terms. Today, he's an advocate for child actors' rights and speaks openly about the importance of having real support systems in place. Drew Barrymore offers another perspective on this struggle. Daughter of the legendary Barrymore acting dynasty, Drew was drinking alcohol at age 9 and using cocaine by 13. Her story could have ended tragically, but instead, it became one of Hollywood's most inspiring comeback narratives. The key difference? Drew had people who genuinely cared about her recovery, not just her earning potential. She went to rehab, rebuilt her relationships, and eventually became one of Hollywood's most respected actresses and producers. Her journey teaches us something crucial. Recovery is possible, but only when the person, not the profit, becomes the priority. The criminal element. Sometimes the consequences go beyond personal struggles and enter criminal territory. These cases show us how quickly everything can spiral out of control. Edward Furlong captured hearts as the young John Connor in Terminator 2, but his off-screen life became a series of increasingly serious legal troubles. Drug possession, domestic violence charges, violating restraining orders, each incident seemed to push him further from the promising career he once had. What makes Edward's story particularly tragic is how it demonstrates the cycle of trauma that often affects child stars. Many come from unstable backgrounds, find temporary escape in acting, but never receive the therapeutic support they need to process their experiences healthily. Orlando Brown from Disney Channel's That's So Raven followed a similar destructive path. Multiple arrests for drug possession, domestic violence, and even charges related to threatening behavior painted a picture of someone desperately struggling with demons far bigger than any role he'd ever played. But here's what's important to remember. These aren't just statistics or cautionary tales. These are human beings who started as children with dreams, just like millions of other kids. The difference is that their mistakes happened under a microscope, with consequences that most of us can't even imagine. The ultimate tragedies. Some stories, however, don't have happy endings, and these are the ones that should shake us to our core. Corey Haim was part of the two Coreys phenomenon alongside Corey Feldman in the 1980s. Movies like The Lost Boys made him a teen heartthrob, but behind the scenes, he was dealing with trauma that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. Corey spoke openly about being SA by industry adults, a problem that's far more widespread than most people realize. Unable to cope with the trauma, he turned to prescription drugs, which eventually led to his death at just 38 years old. His passing wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was an indictment of an industry that failed to protect its most vulnerable members. Dana Plato from Different Strokes faced similar struggles. After the show ended, she battled drug addiction, financial problems, and legal troubles. Despite attempts at recovery, she died of a drug overdose at age 34, just one day after appearing on a radio show where she discussed her struggles. These losses force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. For every success story, there are others who didn't make it, and each one represents a life cut short by a system that values profit over people. So, what can we learn from all of this? First, that childhood fame is not the fantasy most people imagine it to be. It's a complex, often dangerous experience that requires robust support systems, proper mental health care, and adults who prioritize the child's well-being over their earning potential. Second, that recovery and redemption are possible, but they require genuine support, professional help, and sometimes stepping away from the spotlight entirely. And finally, that as consumers of entertainment, we have a responsibility too. Every click, every view, every dollar we spend sends a message about what kind of industry we want to support. The next time you see a child star struggling in the headlines, remember, behind that story is a human being who deserves compassion, not judgment. Their pain isn't our entertainment. What do you think? Have any of these stories changed your perspective on child stardom? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to see more deep dives into Hollywood's hidden truths, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones that make us uncomfortable. And those are exactly the stories we need to keep telling. See you on the next video.